Hello, welcome to Greet the Week. And this week we are talking about lies or white lies that sometimes, we want to try to dress them up even though it may be an untruth. So, Jan, what's on your mind about lying?
Well, thank you, Mona, and hello, everybody. And last week we got into a little discussion about lying. And I started thinking, and I started looking around and paying attention to the lies that we say in our everyday life. I mean, I've done it too, and I'm sure everybody here has done it. You know, you say something and you know it's not true, but for some reason or another, you say it and you think, well, there doesn't hurt anything. But when does it get to the point where it is destructive? Or when does it get to the point where that becomes the way you do things? And then I started thinking, well, why do we allow white lies? And I started thinking about, well, because we don't want to face whatever consequences might happen if we told the truth, or we don't want to have to deal with the truth. So I just thought I'd open up the discussion and see what do you think about it.
Now, the first thing I'd like to know is what's the difference between a white lie and a non-white lie? How do you determine which is which?
Well, that's exactly it. How do you determine? You start off with innocent secrets or things you don't want to divulge, and you call them white lies. But then, how do you know that it's not hurtful or it's no big deal? How do you draw the line? And I think that's where the trouble is, because at first you might feel a little uncomfortable doing it, but if you keep doing it, then after a while you get kind of used to it, and then you go a little more and a little more. And so where do you stop?
Sometimes you may fudge a little bit in an attempt to be tactful.
Okay.
And then it takes on a life of its own.
Yeah. Yeah.
And whenever we begin to realize that, and it goes back to what we've talked about before of continually self-reflecting, and that if we are doing something to try to be tactful, but yet in the long run, and in the long run, it's not all that effective, maybe we need to rethink. And I know there was an example that one time that there was someone, other people reflect us to us. And often we may be irritated with them because we're seeing something about us in them that we don't want to acknowledge.
Right.
And I had someone complain to me one time about someone else. No, I can't stand that person. They're so glib, and they're, and they say the silliest things, and then they laugh at their own jokes, and they're not even funny. And I'm listening to this person complain about the other person, and I'm thinking, it sounds like you're complaining about yourself.
There's an eye opener.
Yeah. And I thought about that. And I'm thinking this other guy, he'll say, or other person will say silly things. It's just really off the cuff, and, I'll smile or kind of laugh a little bit or something. And sometimes it's an awkward response, but you want to be nice. I mean, you don't want to come right out and be ugly and hateful to someone. So it's an attempt to be kind as opposed to unkind. It is an attempt to the person that was, to not make it even more awkward. Mm-hmm. Because I don't have a commitment to this particular person that, the one was complaining about. But I got to thinking about that. The one that was complaining about the other person, I do have a commitment to. It's a relative. It's a long-term commitment to be kind.
So it depends on who you're talking to and what's at stake here. And is it really worth bringing it up and correcting or saying that you don't agree with what the other person is saying?
Right.
Yeah.
And so I chose to not say anything to the effect of, well, you're really just seeing yourself that you're complaining about you. I chose to just let that slide. But I got to thinking about that later. How can I, in those situations when it really is necessary, And so I came up with just a couple of things and that is, do I have permission to speak freely?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah.
And what if it's offensive? You know, if what I have, it may offend you.
Right.
I'm afraid that, our relationship would suffer, that if I get honest with you, but yet it really can't grow if we can't get honest with each other.
Right. Right. And that does cause a little strain in the relationship if you can't say what's on your mind and say what you really think. Because then it does make it so that you don't feel like you can be open in the relationship. You could be honest.
And it is just what I think, or the way I'm seeing it. It's not that, if I can constantly remember that what I'm giving is information and what I'm receiving is information.
Mm-hmm. Right. Right.
Handle it lightly.
Teach the other person to understand that. Yeah. Yeah. One of our guests has written all kinds of notes here, and I was kind of looking through, and I have to chuckle. She says, I have lied about Santa Claus. And that was real interesting for me. When my kids were little, I could not lie about Santa Claus. And people were telling me, how can you not do the whole Santa Claus thing with your kids? I said, well, you've got to put on, hide things and make up a story. And because I was divorced from their dad. And so they didn't always spend Christmas with me. I didn't always have them on Christmas Eve and Christmas Day. And so it's like all of a sudden the gifts appeared at my house a few days earlier than it did at anybody else's. And it just got to be too big a thing to try to cover up. And so I just never, I didn't tell them that he didn't exist. I just didn't go there. I didn't talk about the whole Santa Claus thing, that I wait for him to come and all this kind of stuff. It was, it was kind of interesting, but that's a little thing that is a custom that we have here, that we tell children about Santa Claus, and we do that because we think that helps them to get excited about Christmas and to be good and to do things.
Well, that's something that I personally, a trap I never did fall into.
Yeah.
Is because, as a kid growing up, I was taught about Santa Claus, but then when I had my own epiphany, I'm thinking that if we lie to our children whenever they find the truth, it's just not for the Easter Bunny or anything.
Well,
and so I've never decorated with a Santa or reindeer, and I've never even broached that. And people say that, well, I just don't go there. Just don't go there. And we don't, we give gifts, but it's gifts to each other.
Right.
It's not a.
And then, I do remember you said about, when the kids find out, that you've lied to them. I do remember when I found out, I got angry at my parents for lying to me. And then I felt embarrassed because I was talking about Santa Claus and everyone else was saying, oh, there's no such thing as Santa Claus. So I'm like, how could you, lie to me and tell me this man exists when he doesn't, or not tell me early enough that he's not real.
And then the thing of it is, the way we do one thing's how we do everything. So what else have you lied to me about?
Right, exactly. What else haven't you?
And then when there is a truth that is really there, that is a very real truth, that, Christmas is a celebration of a very kind person that to some is the savior of the world, and to others is just a good philosopher. But, how do you help them to reconcile the fact that reality kind of goes back to illusion, all is illusion.
Mm-hmm.
We contribute to those illusions.
Yeah.
And when we do the lying and without being truthful, we're harming ourselves, because can we ever harm anyone else without by default harming ourselves, whether that's in thought or action or anything?
Yeah. And then our guest also said that nature neuroscience suggests that telling trivial lies desensitizes the part of the brain that promotes the feeling of unease we get when we lie. So I think the more that we lie, at first it feels uncomfortable when we say something that we're not supposed to say. And then I guess if we say the truth and then somebody gets angry at us, then naturally we would say, okay, it's better for me to lie than to tell the truth, because then I get hurt when I tell the truth. But then the more you lie, the less it bothers you, and so then you can tell bigger and bigger lies.
Yeah, our body is so designed that it begins to crave whatever it is we feed it.
Mm. Yeah.
Whether that's salt or sugar or alcohol or drugs or legal or illegal, it begins to crave it. Fat, it begins to crave it. Whether that is pornography or violence or anger or lying, our body, we begin to crave it. It's repeat, because it seemed effective initially.
Correct.
And if it seemed effective, and then, I don't feel so bad about it anymore.
So
and then too, I never shall forget one time I was not at a staff meeting that we had. I was out of town, and so whenever I came, they had begun to plan some things, for an upcoming event. And so when I came back, one of the other staff was telling me about it, and I said, well, when's it going to be, and who's going to do what, and what's the price going to be, and what am I supposed to do? And I was just grilling. Well, I didn't mean to grill. I was just interested in what was going on. And he kept telling me all these things, and I asked a couple more questions, and he says, sister, he said, I really don't know that. I'm telling you more than I know already. And I think sometimes we get on a roll and we just start filling in the blanks.
Well, you do, because you feel like you should know, or the other person's expecting you to know the answer. So you start making up answers and saying things, and then you get so deep and you're going, now, wait a minute, I really don't remember any of this.
Right. I've already told you more than I know.
That is cute. Told you more than I know. Yeah.
So, okay. And so, and whenever we have a little humor in it, we can maybe accept the fact that we go there and don't even realize we're going down that rabbit hole sometimes.
Yeah. But talk about the negative consequences of lying. I remember when my kids were little, something happened, and I don't remember what it was, and I was angry. I chose to anger, and I was asking who did this and what happened, and they were giving their little stories. I said, okay, you two, I don't really care who did it. I'm not going to punish the person who did this. I just want to know what happened. It's more important to me that you're honest and tell me the truth than what happened.
Right.
And so they told me that. Then some years later, something happened, and my son said, remember, Mom, you said that you want us to be honest, and you won't get upset if we're honest. I said, absolutely. Tell me what happened. But that is, we do teach our kids to lie.
We do.
When we punish them for things, and I just rather that they tell the truth, because I valued honesty so much that I wanted them to tell me what's really going on. I can handle it, and if I can't, it's not your issue, it's my issue.
Yeah, and there may be consequences for it, but it doesn't have to be a disregard for the person. There may be that you need to make an apology for. You need to clean up the mess. You need to. Right. There may be some ramifications for it. That it's not going to be a break in the relationship.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Let's find some natural consequences, and let's follow through with that. But especially if somebody's property or something was damaged.
Right. I had a kid one time. I was. Anyway, playing with some stuff. Anyway, it broke a little thing that we had there at the house. And anyway, somehow his mom found out, and I really don't know how, unless he told her. Yeah. And she sent back over to my house with some money in hand and to come back to apologize, And I so appreciated that mom doing that. Mm-hmm. But I told the kid, I said, I am so impressed with you and your mom, that, you came back to make an apology, that, something was broken, and that you're willing to pay for it. And I said, but you know what? I don't want the money, because you take it, give it back to your mom, or if it's yours, you keep it. because I've already forgiven you.
Oh,
and he
yeah.
said, have?
He was so surprised.
And so even though there may be some rampant, it took a lot of courage for that kid to come back over and admit the fact that he broke something. And
well, then you told
good
him.
conscience. It hadn't been seared yet by.
Yeah. Well, you let him know about what you appreciated about what he did, instead of the first thing that he did that he broke. Because I'm sure it was an accident anyway, with kids being the way kids are.
Yeah.
And
one of the comments that our guest sent in is the fact that if someone asks a question or says something, is it a good response to just come back with "that's interesting" or "oh, is that what you're thinking?" or "is that where you're coming from?" And it can be rather than agreeing to, or
So yeah, it's a tough thing, but if you really look around in your everyday life, you do hear people telling lies, and you know that they're lying, and so how do you bring it up? I mean, some of them, I guess it's okay to let slide, but then after a while you're at the point, well, we need to stop this.
You may know they're lying, but some people don't know that they're lying and will operate on the basis of that lie.
Or you may think it's a lie because we don't have all the information. I mean, there's just so many things that we cannot know.
Well, sure.
And it may be part true, or it may have been from that person's point of view. I don't know. I mean, and then it just all leads to hate and leads to so much discourse that, truth, if it is truth, it will eventually prove itself. If it is a lie, it will eventually prove itself.
Maybe. Not necessary. And eventually it could be 200 years from now.
Exactly.
Eventually is a very, very, very big word that doesn't narrow it down at all.
It goes back to Carolyn Mace.
I see that as a way to maybe justify lies. To say, well, it'll eventually prove itself. Well, yeah, but when's eventually? Tomorrow or the next century?
Or 120 years from now, when we are no longer here. Carolyn Mace talks about our lives as being that we are living our life, but it's like we are living our life in a 50-story condominium. Now, there's other people in there, too, that's living their lives in that 50-story condominium. And so we are born, and we're, the first of our life, not that we go by 50 years or anything, but she just equates it to a 50, and that every floor we go up, well, first of all, we're living on street level, and we look out, and all we can see is the street in front of our house or whatever's on the sides. And then as we interact with other people and so forth, and eventually we go up to the second or third floor and we look out a window and we can see, oh, well, not only is there a street out there, but there are other houses out there. And as we go on up a few more stories, and we can look out the window and we can see, oh, well, not only am I in are there other houses on my street, but I live in a neighborhood. And we go on up a few more stories and we look at it. Well, not only is it a neighborhood of people, but there's parks there, and there's streams there, and there's all kinds of things there. And we keep eventually going up, and the object is to get up to the penthouse, which would equate full consciousness. Because every time we become aware of something, we're aware of the fact that this is in my universe. It's a part of my life. It's a part of what's happening out there. I just hadn't known about it before.
Yeah.
And so we can get up onto the penthouse and we can look out and we can see the storming clouds coming, and we can see the results of lying, or the results of truth, or the results of fibbing, or results of illusions, or all that kind of stuff. And we can see the results of it, and we realize that this is what is happening down here But we can't see it when we're still down here on the third or fourth or fifth level. And so it's living in a mystic theory of the fact that we're all doing the best we can. And sometimes information is skewed. And sometimes, and if someone is lying, will there be other people hurt by it? Yes, 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 yes. But if there is any truth in that, let me see if I have it. I love this little, I think I have it right here. If I do, I'll show it to you. Anyway, it's the picture of aha. Here it is. Good and evil. Can you see this?
Oh, yeah.
What does it say? Do you see good?
Yeah.
Do you see evil?
No, it can't read. The print's too small. Wow, it's out of focus now. The mind is.
No,
Well, I'll read that to you in a minute. Just look at the black thing. Good and evil.
Oh, I see.
Can you see both?
Yeah, yeah.
And there's stories of the fact that that they put weeds in the cornfield. They put weeds in the and they all look alike. Let them grow together. Whenever the time comes, we'll separate it out. But here's the quote that I put at the bottom of this. It's from John Milton in Paradise Lost. The mind is its own place, and in itself can make a heaven of hell or a hell of heaven.
Mm-hmm.
And our mind is its own place. It's its own place. And we can make an absolute lie out of everything, or we can see some truth to it. And it's probably a mix of both. Just like we as individuals are light and darkness. And if that evil was not in us, we wouldn't be able to recognize it in someone else. Just like if that good was not in us, we could not recognize it in someone else. Because in the whole is everything, and everything is in the one. And we're all connected.
We are all connected. And going back to the thing that we're doing the best we can at that moment. And that's something, to keep in mind. Okay, so what is going on at that moment? What's happening with that other person?
Right.
That's resulting in their saying the things that they're saying.
And then they're seeing it the way they're seeing it.
Yeah. Yeah. But it's the kind of thing that you have to do one-on-one. It's not, because you have to have that conversation with the person and try to understand the person to understand how to,
or learn more about their background to see where they're coming from.
Yeah.
If you can't have that one-on-one conversation.
Yeah. But then if you get angry at what they're saying, who's the one being hurt there?
Right.
So and what's causing that anger inside of you, and maybe there is something you can do. It might not be directly with the person who's lying, but maybe there's some other things that you can do to help resolve that anger within you, because the anger within you it's hurting you and it's keeping you from doing the best you can, and it just gnaws on you and eats at you.
And the only thing we can, we're doing the best we can. And so, give that same theory to someone else. They're doing the best they can. And am I doing the best I can by being angry at them?
Yeah.
And if I realize the fact that, maybe if I give a little space for grace, that at least my blood pressure wouldn't go up.
Right.
That could be a justification for lying. Somebody may say, well, I'm doing the best I can. The best I can is to lie. A lot of people will justify their own lies by saying, oh, that's the best I can do. The best I can do is to lie.
And that in that instance, you know, until they have their own conviction in and of themselves. Because we are free will agents. We have this freedom need, don't tell me what to do, because we make our own decisions. And we will not change our mind until we decide to. It does not matter what it is. We will not change our mind about anything until we can see some rationale to do it.
You know, I'm still waiting for the reason that you put the word white in front.
White lie.
As if there's a difference between a white lie and a non-white lie. What is the difference? Is it kindness? Is it kindness? A white lie is kind and a non-white lie is not kind? Is that the difference? I mean, are we saying that white lies are okay and non-white lies are not okay? What's the point of putting the word white there in front of the word lie? What's the point?
Yeah, here's our guest Charlotte wrote this. She says, I found some interesting info regarding white lies. A person is lied to 10 to 200 times a day. That's pretty amazing, isn't it? Mostly just to keep a conversation going, to avoid conflict, or to establish a connection with somebody. And that's by Pamela.
As in Brad telling me I've already told you more than I know.
Oh, yeah. And so, and I mean, to me, I think we call it a white lie because we're saying that it's not hurting anybody. But I don't know that there really is anything that you could say that's not hurting anybody. Because even when you're saying something to avoid conflict, that could come up later on. You're allowing them to think that you're agreeing with them, and you're not. And then maybe later on, when things get to the point where you're tired of what they're saying, and you might blow up and get really angry because you didn't address something at the beginning.
And it's showing more about you than about them.
Right. And that's
like that happen.
That is so true. There's so many things that happen that irritate us, anger us, that we try to avoid and act like it's not a big deal. But then we do respond. It gets to the point where we can't handle it anymore, and then we do respond in such a way that's over the top, and then we're the one that looks bad.
Yeah.
Not into her.
And in trying to prove something that's not provable.
Yeah.
Can be, because I never shall forget, I had this accountant, and I was talking with him. I wanted to know about the people that had been attending the classes and attendance, and I wanted some kind of guidelines, some rationale to go ahead and put in a report, And he said, "Well, what do you want it to say?" And I said, "Well, I want it to say the truth." And he said, "No." He said, "It can say anything you want it to say."
Well,
and
it can,
things can be manipulated and in a certain light and in a certain way. And I said, "Well, then just forget it. I'm not even going there." Because, but there are things that can be manipulated. And adding white to, or getting a different, pretty color to something is going to make it seem less honest than it really is, or less evil than it really may grow to be. And it's part of the human condition, that we're always wanting to, well, with me, it was a white lie, but with you, it was a big black lie.
Right.
Just depends on who's saying it.
Well, I don't think going back to Jerry's point, I don't think you could ever find a definition for a white lie, because one person's perception means, looks at it that it's harmless, but another person is like, no, that's hurtful. I needed to know that information. Why didn't you share it?
Right.
Why did you make me think that all this time that everything was going well when you're telling everybody else that it's not, to save my feelings? That's, that can come back, that eventually to harm you and to harm the relationship.
And that harms the relationship right up front.
Yeah.
But it's becoming conscious. The more we can become aware of our own thoughts and how our own thoughts disconnect us from others or connect us.
Yeah.
Connect or disconnect. And whenever we are, it's like you hurt me, then I want to hurt you somewhat. And it can become so destructive, relationally as well as physically, mentally, and emotionally.
Yeah. Yeah, that's when you just have to stop and say, what am I doing? I mean, I do that quite a bit. I find myself being ugly, and I'm going, now wait a minute, where did this come? Why am I saying this? Why am I doing this? And that's one thing that once you start doing that and knowing that you don't want to act that way, you will notice when you're doing it. You can stop yourself. But first is to become aware that you don't want to do it.
And it's going up one more step, getting closer to the penthouse of being conscious, fully conscious of how what we do, what we say, how we not only affect us, our own mentality, our own health, but we also affect others because we are all connected. We are all connected. We influence each other.
We do.
We influence each other.
And we may not even realize that we're doing it. Sometimes just your emotion, how you're feeling when you come into a room, if you're feeling good, you're going to lift the spirits of other people.
Right.
So you're not
light it up or bring it down.
Right. And I mean, you've walked into a room where there's been an argument and no one has said a word, but you can walk in there and you can just feel it. You can feel
that tension is there.
The tension in the room.
Because it's audible. It's audible. It's visible. Yeah. And as Dr. Glasser said, anytime, you're labeling someone liar, bad, ugly, hateful, anytime you can find a lesser adjective to put on it, it's going to automatically give a little bit of grace, for lack of a better word. It's automatically going to soften the way you look toward it if you can use a lesser label than one that is so harsh.
Like the word white.
Just maybe, there may be a little smidgen of truth in it. I'm sorry, what did you say, Jerry?
I said like the word white.
Exactly.
Right.
That kind of minimizes the lie. It's an adjective that makes it, well, maybe it's okay.
Yeah.
And maybe it is. I don't know. When are white lies okay? Or when are they not okay? Are they always okay? Are white lies? And how do you tell if it's a white lie or a non-white lie?
Well, that's one of those provable or unprovable. I don't know that we're going to be able to settle that. We're just
well, there's no definition for it. No definition that everyone would agree on.
Well, I'm not saying everybody would. I don't know that everybody's ever going to agree about anything.
Well, that's true.
Yeah. Well, the thing of it is, when we look at colors, white, what color is white? It's a non-color.
It's the absence of color.
Absence of color.
Why do we use the color white
to
minimize the lie? Why not?
Yeah, I heard that. I'm saying that the color itself is actually a non-color.
Well, sure. I mean, but that's
semantics, huh?
Yeah, that's semantics. I don't know whether that doesn't even come close to answering my question, but.
Well, I don't know that question is answerable. That's part of living in the mystery of life.
Well, then what are we talking about then,
Well, I think in my mind, the reason when I put the title of this, is it okay to tell white lies? I had white lies in quotes. Having that question, is there really such thing as a white lie, as a lie that's not bad? Because, when we whether we call it white lies or yellow lies or pink lies or whatever, we're saying that some lies are okay.
Right.
And
what makes a lie? What makes it okay?
But there's not one answer to that. It depends on who you're talking to, how the other person's going to respond to it. Yeah. A lie is a lie, Charlotte. Thank you. And it is a lie. And maybe we say white lie to help us to feel better about saying it.
Well, maybe.
And equally true is the truth is the truth is the truth.
Yeah.
And when this right here never works, it never works, because there is a smidgen of truth in a lie. There is a smidgen of lie in a truth. And we can see that when we're up high enough to look down and see that all of those things are coming together to make the whole. And our life can go more smoothly if maybe we can choose to give a little leeway.
Could we possibly agree that a white lie is a harmless lie? Is that possible? Or is that wrong? Maybe that's wrong.
Well, do you think it's possible to have a harmless lie? How do you know if the lie is harmless?
Well, maybe you don't know, but either it is or it isn't. Maybe you don't know.
Well, your intent probably is for it not to be harmful, or maybe not. I mean, some people could call it a white lie to say, you can't get upset at me because this is just a white lie, isn't it?
I like to look at, is it effective or ineffective, as opposed to right or wrong, because it's the wrong that makes everything so rigid. It's the rightness that makes it so rigid. Well, I'm right, you're wrong, and then it's just pitting against, and it just doesn't work.
Yeah.
And maybe trying to be tactful, trying to be kind, if we later find out that, in trying to be kind, I was not being truthful, then I need to really think about that and how can I prevent that from happening in the future, but still be kind, even if I choose to not say anything.
Right.
And letting the truth or the lie steep in its own juices and prove itself to be what it is. And that goes back to speaking up or not speaking up. I mean, it's, when do you speak up and when do you not?
Yeah.
And I don't know that there's any definite answers to anything. That's why I live in the mystery. Do what you can to the best of your ability and really think about it. How can I do better? How can I think better? How can I love better? How can I?
Because we can always be better. There are always ways to improve, and that's what we need to look at. Is what can I do about it, and what can I learn from this, and how can I move forward with this?
It is what it is.
Yeah.
So what? Now what?
Yeah. Well, we're out of time for today, so appreciate all the discussion, and we'll see everybody next week. Thank you for joining. Oops, I didn't mean.